Hello, it's Harry Brook here, Ag Fieldman for Flagstaff County, and today we're talking to Karen Wickerson. She is the Rat and Pest Program Specialist, also known as the Rat Lady.
You're listening to the official podcast of Flagstaff County.
So, Karen, since you are known as the Rat Lady, let's talk a little bit about the rat program in the province. What exactly is it?
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you, Harry, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And as far as the rat program in the province, it's been running for 70 years. So it's called the Alberta Rat Control Program. And what that means is we encourage people to report rat sightings to us so that we can maintain our rat-free status.
Is it really rat-free status, or are we just pretending?
Well, rats do get into the province, definitely. Yeah. And when they do, we prevent them from establishing permanently.
Okay.
So the rat-free status is something we give ourselves.
It's a fairly unique status, isn't it?
It is. It is. Very, very few areas or jurisdictions in the world can say this.
Other than the occasional island, eh?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty impressive. So how do we maintain our rat-free status?
Well, we rely heavily on public reporting of it, as I mentioned. We also have a rat control zone established along the Alberta-Saskatchewan border, which runs 520 kilometers.
Okay.
And that was established back in 1950, in the 50s, I should say, early 50s, when it was clear that rats were at the border and we did not want them to get further into the province and establish.
Okay, and so how do they keep them out on that side of the province?
So every premise along the border, all the way from Cold Lake down to the Montana border, is inspected twice yearly. So originally it was the first three ranges, which is approximately, close to 30 kilometers westward from the border. And now it is every range within the every site within the first range is checked in the spring and fall for rat infestations.
Okay. Yeah, I used to be a district agriculturalist in Lloydminster, and I knew a couple of the people that were our rat patrol people. It's, people like to make a joke about it, but it was effective. Yeah, they'd be out there in wintertime. What about rats? I was just thinking, when do they usually start moving around where they're detectable?
Yeah, kind of in the spring they do when it starts to warm up, and certainly people along the border, as I'm sure you're aware, farm in Saskatchewan and within Alberta. So there's movement of equipment going back and forth, and also feed, especially in the fall. A lot of feed is moved into Alberta, and so there is an opportunity there for rats to move in to the province that way. And certainly they have traveled overland as well, just depending if the environment is right for them to do that.
Now, the province also has a 1-800-RAT line too, doesn't it? A phone line.
So it was established, it's 310 RATS, 310 RATS, and that was established close to 10 years ago. And since then, we have changed it to an email. So the 310 RATS phone line, which you were able to access from anywhere in Alberta, has been discontinued as of last year. And now we have this 310 RATS at gov.ab.ca email, where we encourage people to send in a photo as well as their reported rat sighting. And this has been great because it has increased our ability to respond to the report if it is a rat much quicker.
Yeah, well, it's really essential to get the visual picture too, because there's a lot of times people confuse rats with other creatures, right?
Definitely, yes. The muskrat is one.
And there are times of the year where the muskrats are quite active, moving around the countryside. And I remember at the Ag Info Center where you'd start getting a bunch of people phoning in about, well, we got these rats. And most cases, it was muskrats on the move.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we see it in kind of the late spring and also in the fall as well, where the muskrat sightings increase.
Okay. And what other ways do the rats actually get into the province, or how? I have heard cases where you get rat starting up in the middle of Edmonton. Like, how do they get there?
So they also do, we receive a lot of single reported rat sightings or confirmation, and they hitch rides on vehicles. So it can be on transport trucks or recreation vehicles and just regular cars, trucks as well.
Okay. I guess they get lonely.
Yeah, they crawl. I don't know. They must crawl up into the vehicle because it's warm or something. I don't know. There's definitely been an increase of rats, roof rats, I should say, from BC that hitch rides on vehicles. So quite often people will, drive back from a location in BC and park their vehicle in their garage and come out the next morning and they find a dead rat in their garage. It's hopped off the vehicle looking for food and water, because you can imagine riding in a vehicle for, close to 12 hours if they're coming all the way, say, from Vancouver or the island. They're pretty hot and dehydrated and hungry. And so they hop off the vehicle in search of food. And of course, usually don't find anything and perish. Okay.
So what's the difference between a roof rat and a Norway rat, which is the one that we're keeping out?
Yeah. So the Norway rat is a bigger rat in that the body itself is bigger and the tail is not quite as long as the body. It's a bit shorter. And it has smaller ears, and it's kind of like a light brown color, usually with some white underneath. And those are the rats that they move westward from, they moved across the prairies. So, and they can survive very well on the prairies if they have a food and shelter. And then the roof rat thrives better in kind of seaports, hence called roof rat. It goes up high and can climb really well. And so the distinguishing features of that as compared to the Norway rat are the tail is longer than the body, and it is black, more dark brown, black, gray in color. And something else is interesting about it is the ears are quite big in that you can pull them forward and they will cover the eye. So that really helps when confirming the identity. Sometimes we have some big mice that are found, and if we're confused at all, that really helps us to identify them.
So how destructive are roof rats compared to the Norway rat?
Just as destructive as well.
Okay.
The ability to chew, their teeth grow, they're continually growing. And I recently read a statistic that they spend 2% of their day chewing. So 2% of their day is spent chewing because they need to keep dulling those teeth or
keep them from overgrowing, sort of like beavers.
Yeah. So, but definitely an invasive species as well, and just as destructive.
Does the rat program also cover roof rats?
It does, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
They are both listed in the Agricultural Pests Act under pests. So the Norway rat is mentioned, and any other ratus from that genus.
So under the act, does that prevent anybody having like a pet rat?
That is correct. It is illegal in Alberta to own a pet rat as well.
So even using them for food sources for snakes and stuff?
They are allowed to be used if they're dead. So they can come into the province dead.
Okay.
A lot of pet food supply stores do that. They do purchase dead rats, keep them in the freezer, and people come in and feed their snakes and the reptiles them. Yeah.
That sounds absolutely delicious. Yes. I guess if you're a snake. So do we have actually people that are full-time inspectors?
So how it works is the Agricultural Pests Act, and the people who established this way back in 1950, in the early 50s, they made a lot of amendments to it, were very forward-thinking. And it was written into the act that every municipality has to have a designated pest control officer.
Right.
So that when I receive a reported rat sighting and I feel that there's enough information and it sounds like it could possibly be a rat, I can contact that municipality and ask for the pest control officer, and they will go out and investigate for me.
Yeah, because I remember at one time there were full-time employees of the counties, like County of Vermilion River, MD of Provost, that they would have someone that would be out there inspecting those first 3 townships.
And we still do. So the 6 municipalities that look after the rat control zone, we do pay for the pest control officer there to go out and do the inspections in the spring and fall.
Okay.
And we do provide them with rat bait as well. So,
Okay.
And that's been ongoing for many, many years.
Now, I'm old enough to remember back, yeah, it's been a few years, but back in Lloydminster, there was one case where they found at the Lloydminster dump, which was on the Saskatchewan side, there was a rat infestation at the dump. And basically it was they went out there and they had a little shooting party. That's poisoning and shooting. Does that happen anymore?
It's not government authorized, let's just say, but okay. I know it has occurred. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's ways to, even if you notice there's an infestation that's either close to the border or just inside the border, there's the people and resources available to take care of that problem and eliminate them.
Definitely. Yeah.
Excellent. I was just thinking how it's, if you have a compost heap here, you don't worry about it. All you're going to get in there at worst is maybe mice as opposed to rats.
Yeah, their a compost heap or a garbage dump is the perfect place for them to establish. They've got shelter and food.
Lots of food.
Yeah.
People should stop wasting so much, but that's another story. Well, let's change gears here for a second, and let's talk about the coyotes, because they're under the Wildlife Act, but they're also they're a nuisance under the Pest Act.
That's correct. Yeah. So the difference between, say, rats and coyotes is that rats must be controlled because they are labeled a pest. So the owner of a property or land is responsible for controlling them, eradicating them, whereas a coyote, as it's labeled a nuisance, the owner of property of land can choose to control them. And they can give permission for people to come on their land, such as ag fieldmen or people who want to shoot them, they can do that.
Okay, and what kind of control measures can be used on coyotes if they're a problem?
So you can control them certainly by shooting, as I mentioned.
Yeah. Also,
you can snare them, and you do have to, of course, have the proper permit for that.
Right.
And also you can, if the situations are right, you have the proper management practices in place, you can access compound 1080, sodium monofluoroacetate, through your municipality, through your agricultural fieldmen to control them. And it is at their discretion. I provide training as to what circumstances you can dispense this product in. So they would come out and assess the situation and decide whether you are eligible for that.
So that would be a Form 7?
That's correct. Yeah. So what it's called, it's in the Ag Pest, the Pest and Nuisance Control Regulations, which of course support the Agricultural Pests Act. And the Form 7, after the agricultural fieldmen receive training, is the permit they receive, which gives them permission to dispense the product.
Dispense it, right.
And then, so it is called a Form 8 that the agricultural fieldman fills out and has the owner or producer sign for the compound 1080.
Right. And the thing about coyotes too is, if you have a coyote problem, often it can be attributed somewhat to I hate to say it, but a management issue where, perhaps someone with calves has been dumping in the back 40. So they've got a food source. The coyotes start becoming acclimatized to eating that particular food. And then they might get a little bold in a really cold year and start attacking newborn calves. And I've had guys tell me stories of newborn calf just coming out of the mother, and the coyote takes the tongue, which is really gross. But I mean, it's just that's how bad the problem can be.
That is, yeah. And certainly there are things, again, management practices you can do to help prevent coyotes
Right.
from coming onto your property, such as cleaning up your dead stock, disposing of it properly, and then certainly during calving season, all the afterbirth, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Get that cleaned up right away. A dog definitely is the first management practice, especially a sheep producer, should have in place. They are a great deterrent. Yeah, they're what's that?
I was just thinking, must be about 30 years ago or so, they had a bumper sticker, which was, "Eat Alberta lamb, 10,000 coyotes can't be wrong."
That is great. I have never heard that or come across that.
Oh, it's an old bumper sticker, but it was a great one to promote consumption of Alberta lamb.
Definitely. And, I came across some old literature on our coyote control program. And at one time, the Alberta government did provide dogs. You could, if you're a lamb producer, I forget if it was for cattle as well, but you could, apply, and they would provide you with a guard dog, which I thought was really incredible.
Yeah. So what are some of the management things a producer can do to prevent coyote depredation?
So, like I mentioned, the first thing we always say in the presentation is a guard dog. Definitely, and depending on the size of your flock or your herd, two or more may be warranted. So that's a good option. And in that category as well, depending on your situation, donkeys, llamas, there are a variety of animals that are very easy to keep that you can use for coyote deterrence. Again, cleaning up the dead stock. The thing with coyotes is predation is a learned process. So the adults teach the pups it. So if an adult doesn't know that, there's a source of food on your farm because, there are deterrents in place to keep them from coming up to your herd or flock, then, they don't teach the young that. So it's something to keep in mind, definitely. Even things like shooting at them to make them feel unwelcome too, even though you're not going to hit them, but you can shoot at them to scare them away from your property if you do see them. Things like bringing your flock of lambs in at night, like perhaps if it's a young flock early in the season, don't leave them out on pasture, bring them in at night. That helps provide protection, and have your dog in place. So there's a multiple variety of things. We do
good fencing.
Good fencing as well. Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to mention we have our coyote control manual. I just updated it this fall.
Oh yeah.
And it is available on our Open Alberta website. So if you go on the open.alberta.ca, I think it is, and Google the coyote control manual, we go in depth into all the management practices that you can use to help prevent coyotes from learning that there's a buffet.
Well, yeah, four-legged buffet, and they're really quite easy. But I was wondering, do we still have access? At one time, there was sort of kind of bite collars that you could put on sheep if you had a real problem.
Yeah, and the registration for that product has been discontinued as of this year. Yeah, it was compound 1080 as well. So we went on acetate. Yeah. So the only toxicant that we have registered still for use is compound 1080. Yeah.
And how is it applied so that would you just put it in a carcass and put some pellets in a carcass and have them eat it, or?
It's a maximum of 6 tablets that is dispensed. It's at the discretion of the agricultural fieldman.
Right.
And a really good way, carcass certainly can be used if it was a fresh kill by a coyote.
Yeah.
But chicken heads are a really good way. I know quite a few different municipalities collect them. They store them up and give them out to producers when they dispense compound 1080. So you can easily slide 1 tablet into the chicken head and then, bury it under snow or in the ground, and the coyote will come along and, detect it, smell it, and then dig it out and eat the chicken head.
Now, the problem with 1080 too is that it's fairly non-selective for canines, right?
Well, it's
You have to be careful where you use it, because you can
That's
also
right.
get your neighbor's dog.
That's correct. Yeah. Dogs need to be locked up, and you are required to post warning signs. And it always is the neighborly thing to do to call your neighbor and let them know that you're using the toxicant and they should keep their dog,
Right.
locked up.
Use it properly. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
There's always risk.
Yeah, certainly. And the agricultural fieldmen have to provide the SDS. So, the toxicity, the information about the toxicity of the product, right. And then our use limitations, which are regulated by Health Canada, the Pest Management Association, Regulatory Association, I should say. And they provide us a list of, they call them use limitations, on how we are legally allowed to use the product.
Okay. Is there anything I might have, probably did miss about our coyotes and our rats that we maybe should cover?
No, I don't. No, I think, like, as far as rats, I've been in this position now for 2 years, and what I've come to discover is it's kind of interesting that, Albertans, especially if you were born here and grew up here, a lot of people just know we don't have rats. Yeah. They don't understand that they don't realize we have a program. So it's funny when I talk to people, they say, but we don't have rats. And I said, I know, we have a program. And I run it.
It's sort of magic, right? It just happens. They don't come here. Yeah.
Yeah, we have a wall up all along.
Invisible.
Yeah. And what I've discovered as well is that because Albertans have never seen a rat, so they can't properly identify one. Hence why we receive 50% of our reported rat sightings in a year are muskrats as well.
So how many reportings would you get in a year?
The past 2 years, and we're going to be closing out this year, almost 500.
Okay,
and the majority are those through the email. People can still phone 310 Farm, and they can, for people who don't have access to the internet, can report that way as well. But 95% of our reported rat sightings are through the email now.
Okay, well, keep up the good work is all I can say. I like the fact that we don't have rats.
Yeah, and when I talk to a lot of people who have moved to Alberta and come from other parts of Canada or parts of the world where they have them, they are always thrilled to know that we don't have rats.
Well, I find too that if you ever go anywhere else, you happen to see a rat, which there's lots around, it's kind of a shock. You suddenly realize, oh, don't see those at home. Well, thank you very much, Karen. I've really enjoyed this talk with you, and keep up the good work is all I can say.
Oh, thank you, Harry. You as well.
Thank you.